A blind girl approached and asked to touch the millionaire's face. But what she said next brought the whole room to silence. "Are you the man in the photo my mom keeps in her bedroom?" She walked in small, cautious steps, guided only by a white cane and the unimaginable courage of someone who had never seen the world but could feel every inch of it. The crowd stood still, parting. Quietly, as if she were carrying something sacred, she stopped at the edge of the stage, right at the center of the red carpet, where the millionaire host was just wrapping up his speech on empathy and overcoming adversity, but he never finished his last sentence. The girl raised her face toward him and asked with a steady voice, no hesitation, "Can I touch your face?" The silence hit like glass shattering on the floor. Security hesitated. The host, still holding the mic, smiled in confusion. But there was something about her presence that stripped away every formality. He knelt down. "Of course you can." She lifted her hands and gently placed them on his face. Small trembling fingers traced the line of his jaw, moved up over his nose, paused at his forehead. Every touch felt heavy with years of absence. He couldn't explain it, but something inside him began to ache. "Are you the man in the photo my mom keeps in her room?" Time stopped. The entire audience fell into a silence deeper than what you hear at funerals. The microphone slipped from the millionaire's hand. His face, pale now, lost the polished confidence of corporate events. He didn't answer. He couldn't, but there was something he didn't know yet. She kept exploring his face. The blind girl, no more than 7 years old, smiled as if she had just found a long-lost name, as if she were recognizing someone not with her eyes, but with her soul. Her mother, seated in the 4th row, covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes filled with tears. One fell before she could stop it. "Mom?" he thought. But the thought was something else entirely. That word, it echoed differently. He couldn't recall her name, didn't recognize her face, but something inside him pulsed, like a live wire connecting forgotten pieces of an old puzzle, buried by convenience or fear. "What photo?" he asked, barely audible. The girl smiled. "It's an old picture. My mum talks to it sometimes. She says the man in the photo will come back one day." Her mother's voice, shaky, sliced through the air. "Emily, come back here, please." But Emily didn't move. Her hand still on his face, she seemed lost in a trance, as if she had waited her whole life for this moment, and then it all collapsed. The stage assistant whispered something in the millionaire's ear, the mother's name, her last name, and he froze. The entire world came rushing back in a blur, a name he hadn't heard in nearly 8 years, a face he tried to erase, a woman he once loved and left. Anna? The woman in the 4th row was now crying openly. The audience, once electrified by a multi-million-dollar charity event, now sat in utter silence, witnessing something far more valuable, an unexpected collision between past and present. "Who are you, Emily?" he asked, his voice cracking. The girl let out a soft laugh. "I don't know yet, but when I touch your face, I feel like I exist differently." And that broke him, because no one had ever said that to him before. Not when he built companies, not when he made the Forbes cover, not when he cut ties with everything that reminded him of where he came from, and now a blind girl in a simple dress and worn shoes was making him feel like he mattered for the first time in years. But then he heard it. "Mr. Blackwood, we have to wrap up. The press is asking for backstage access." He looked around. Lights, cameras, socialites. It all felt ridiculous compared to what was unfolding in front of him. "Anna, why didn't you ever tell me?" She didn't respond. She just cried, because some truths don't fit inside a public statement. He turned to the girl again. "Emily." "How old are you?" she answered without missing a beat. 7. The ground disappeared beneath him. 7 years. And in that moment, for the first time in his very public life, Thomas Blackwood, the billionaire philanthropist of the United States, had no idea what to do. The private jet sliced through the night sky like a silver ghost, but Thomas saw nothing. He sat still, staring at the warped reflection of his face in the window. There was no crowd now, no applause, no microphones, just the echo of a child's question tearing through everything he thought he knew about his life. 7 years. 7 years that couldn't be explained publicly. Not even with an apology, because he knew exactly what he had done or failed to do, but there was something he still refused to remember. The assistant entered with 2 glasses of whiskey, but Thomas didn't touch either. He just asked flatly, "Did you confirm her name?" "Yes, sir. Ana Rivera. She's listed in the event registry as a guest of the Brighter Tomorrow Foundation. It's her." "No doubt." He closed his eyes. Ana, the woman he met in San Diego, back when he was just a junior. Investor trying to prove his worth. She was a volunteer nurse at a community hospital, and he still had a heart back then. She once told me love isn't what you feel when everything's perfect. It's what you choose when everything falls apart, he murmured, unaware he was speaking aloud. The assistant pretended not to hear. Thomas wasn't the type to quote anything, much less remember lines like that. But this one came back now tasting like guilt and blood, because he didn't choose to stay, he chose to leave. But why, really? The memory snapped into place. The high call from the investment firm, the $1 million offer, the immediate relocation clause, and the fear, that paralyzing fear of missing his shot, of becoming his father, a good man, but too small to be heard. He promised to come back. Said it would only be a year, but he never came back, and he never called again. Back then, he didn't know Anna was pregnant. Or did he? That question now burned through him, because there were signs, quiet pauses during calls. A message she left, and he ignored. An email he never replied to. Maybe he didn't want to know, but now the truth had a name, Emily, and it made him feel smaller than ever before. "Sir, would you like me to reach out to her?" the assistant asked. He thought for a moment, then shook his head. "No, she doesn't want to see me right now." Probably never did. The assistant hesitated. "The media is catching on. A video leaked. The stage scene. It's gone viral." Thomas let out a bitter laugh. Of course it had. A billionaire kneeling in front of a blind child who might be his daughter. That sells. But for once, image didn't matter. Reputation felt absurdly irrelevant. He stood, walked to the window, and rested his forehead against the cold glass. The city below looked like a soulless board game. "I need to know. I need to look her in the eyes. Anna's?" He shook his head. Slowly. Emily's. And there, alone on the plane, he felt something he hadn't felt since his mother's funeral, the fear of not being forgiven. But there was one thing he hadn't yet understood. Emily didn't want justice. Or explanations. That little girl only wanted one thing, to know if she was loved, and that he wasn't sure he knew how to give. The plane began its descent. Thomas closed his eyes and thought about the photo, the one Anna kept in her room. He tried to imagine what it could be. A summer smile, an old embrace, a glimpse of who he was before the money and the headlines, because somehow that photo held the version of him he had forgotten to be, and now maybe it was too late to return to him in time. But then the assistant stepped closer, holding new information. "Anna agreed to meet with you. One condition only, that it be in a neutral place, no media, and with Emily present." Thomas turned slowly. "When?" "Tomorrow, 4 p.m., in the garden at the hospital where she works." His heart beat faster. It wasn't fear, or even anxiety. It was the beginning of something he didn't yet know how to name. Clear my day. Cancel everything. 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 And for the first time in years, Thomas Blackwood wasn't rushing off to save the world. He was trying to save the part of himself he had let die. The hospital garden felt like another planet, surrounded by small trees and simple flowers. There was no luxury, no cameras. It was the kind of place where you could hear the wind, where truth didn't need microphones. Thomas arrived exactly at 4 p.m. He wore dark jeans and a light blue shirt. No suit, no tie. Just a man trying to feel at home in his own skin. Anna was already waiting, seated on a wooden bench, hands folded in her lap. Emily, beside her, was gently feeling the leaves of a plant, as if reading a secret book. He stopped a few steps away. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." Anna didn't answer. She just gave a slight nod. Her face looked different, firmer, older. But her eyes were the same, holding a silence that spoke louder than any word. Emily turned her head toward the sound of his voice. "Is that you?" He stepped closer slowly. "It's me." She smiled. "I told you he'd come, Mum." But Anna didn't smile. "She waited 7 years, Thomas. 7 years carrying a question I couldn't answer." He took a deep breath. "I didn't know. You did. Deep down, you knew." Her words weren't harsh. They were worse. They were true. He sat on the opposite bench, facing them both, tried to meet Anna's gaze, but she looked away. "I was an ambitious kid, scared. I didn't know how to deal with the idea of being a father." "You didn't know what it meant to lose," she said calmly, cutting him off. "And for someone who's never lost, love feels like a choice." Emily stayed unaware of the tension. She was still playing with a yellow flower between her fingers. There was a piece in her that hurt to watch. "She's so much like you." Anna finally looked at him. "And like you too, when she smiles crooked, when she goes quiet after hearing something important, when she's scared but pretends she's not." He swallowed hard. "Can I talk to her alone?" Anna hesitated, then nodded. Emily turned when she heard his footsteps. "Can I sit?" She reached out her hand. "Sure, but tell me, are you wearing that same cologne from before?" He smiled, surprised. "No. I don't even remember what it was. It was woody, sweet at the end. My mum kept the empty bottle." He didn't answer. His silence was an unspoken apology. "Why did you leave?" she asked suddenly. The question sliced through him. "Because I didn't yet know what mattered, and it took me too long to learn." She touched his face again like she had at the event, but this time with more tenderness, as if trying to memorize what she never got to watch grow. "My mom used to cry when she thought I was asleep. Sometimes she'd talk to the photo. She said she forgave you, but I knew she didn't." He closed his eyes, but there was something Emily didn't know yet. "I kept a picture of you too, an ultrasound. She sent it to me once by mistake, and I deleted it. Thought it'd be easier to move on that way." She didn't say anything, just lowered her head, then smiled faintly. "But you're here now." "I am." "Are you going to leave again?" The lump in his throat nearly kept him from answering. "No, I hope you'll let me try to stay." She reached out her hand. "Then take me to the ocean. I've never seen it, but my mom describes it. She says its sound heals everything." He looked at Anna, silently asking permission. Anna shook her head gently. "Not yet. Not today." And Emily understood. But then she did something no one expected. She pulled a small textured drawing from her pocket, 2 faces, one larger, one smaller, and handed it to Thomas. "It's how I imagine you and me." And that shattered him again. But there was still so much he didn't know, and so much she still needed to say. That night, Thomas didn't return to his penthouse on Fifth Avenue, nor to the hotel his staff had booked. Instead, he rented a modest room near the hospital. No panoramic views, no room service, no one treating him like someone special. Just a man trying to relearn how to be human. He spent hours staring at the drawing Emily had given him, the 2 textured faces, the way she pictured her father. And he wondered, could he ever live up to that man? But there was something he still hadn't faced. The next morning, he bought a bouquet of wildflowers and stopped by Emily's school, spoke with the administration, asked for permission to leave a gift. "She's in music class right now, Mr. Blackwood," said the principal, cautious. "I can ask someone to deliver it later. I'd like to watch her play, just for a minute." Without her knowing, the woman hesitated. She knew who he was. Everyone did. But there was a weight in his request that couldn't be measured in dollars. She looked into his eyes and saw something real, or at the very least, remorse. 2 minutes, no more. He nodded, grateful. From outside the room, he saw Emily at the piano, far too small to reach the pedals, yet somehow grand in the way she played. Each note felt like it came from somewhere deep. As if her fingers knew how to say what her mouth couldn't, Thomas held back tears, but his eyes betrayed him. She didn't see him, but something in her shifted. She stopped playing, lifted her head, as if she sensed the air change. "Someone's listening," she whispered, looking ahead. The teacher smiled. "You're right, but he doesn't want to interrupt." Emily smiled shyly. "Is it my dad?" The question, dropped so softly, cut through the air. Outside the room, Thomas nearly dropped to his knees, but just then the principal appeared at his side, serious. "Mr. Blackwood, the press found out you're here. They're at the school. Entrance, we need to get you out, quietly." He nodded, but before leaving he left a note with the flowers. "I'm not good with flowers, or goodbyes, but I'm trying to get better at showing up." Thomas. He didn't expect a response. But as he slipped out through the side exit, surrounded by camera flashes, he felt like something was about to break open. At that very moment, Anna was watching live news coverage in the hospital break room. They showed his car leaving the school. Showed Emily, showed everything. "This isn't about you, Thomas," she whispered to the screen. "It's about her, and you're making it public." Again. But there was something she hadn't expected either. Later that day, a former employee of Thomas posted old accusations online. Emotional neglect, verbal harassment, broken promises. His name was now trending again, for all the wrong reasons. And Emily felt the shift in the air. "Mom, why does everyone suddenly hate him?" Anna didn't know how to answer, and Thomas, across town, stared at his PR team with cold eyes. "I'm not denying any of it, not now." "Sir, your image is collapsing," he shrugged. "Maybe that's what I need." The truth was, he didn't know who he was anymore. That night he tried to write Emily a letter, scratched out 5 versions. They all felt empty. Nothing he wrote could match what she needed to hear. And then an unexpected call. "Hello?" "This is her teacher," said a kind voice on the line. "Emily wants you to come hear her play this Saturday." "It's the school's annual recital." The silence stretched for 3 seconds. "She really wants that?" "Yes, but only if you promise not to bring cameras, no photographers, just you." And in that moment he knew he was facing his first real chance, but also his greatest risk, to fail her again. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to leave a like. The school auditorium was packed, parents holding up their phones, teachers making last-minute adjustments on stage, children dressed in formal uniforms. But Thomas didn't notice any of it. Sitting in the very last row, wearing a hoodie and a baseball cap, he was breathing like every second was a test of endurance. He was there in a way no one had seen him in years. Vulnerable. On stage, the music. Teacher was announcing each student in pairs, each performing a short instrumental piece. When he said Emily's name, the room went still for a moment, as if her name already carried weight. She walked in with her white cane, guided by another student. She wore a pale blue dress, the same shade Thomas had worn at the hospital. Coincidence? Maybe. Or not. She sat at the piano alone. "This song is for someone who came late," she said into the microphone with the sharp sweetness of someone who doesn't know how to lie. "But who's still trying to show up whole?" Thomas gripped the seat beneath him. She began to play. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Every note sounded like a conversation that never happened. Every pause, like a forgiveness not yet spoken. But then, something no one expected. At the end of her piece, as the crowd applauded, Emily stood up, turned to the audience and said, "My dad is here today. He doesn't deserve applause yet, but he does deserve to hear this." Silence. Heavier than any before, and Thomas stood up, slowly, and walked to the front. There was no hiding now. Parents recognized him. Cameras, even though they were banned, appeared like shadows. And from the back of the room, Anna put her hand to her forehead. It was exactly what she had asked him not to do, Emily noticed. "Are they taking pictures?" Thomas looked around. Yes. Then, it's over, she whispered. He dropped to his knees, whispering back, I'm sorry. I just wanted to hear you. I didn't mean to expose you. But it was too late. The teacher stepped in gently. Let's go, Emily. She left without saying another word. Anna passed him without a glance, and there, standing at center stage under the weight of hundreds of eyes and a silence that judged him harder than words ever could, Thomas finally felt what it was like to lose something he'd never taken the time to earn. Later that night, back home alone, the doorbell rang. It was the company's lawyer holding a folder. We need to talk. The foundation's in trouble. Donations are being pulled. Your image. To hell with my image, Thomas interrupted. I just lost the only thing that could have made me real. The lawyer said nothing, just set the folder down on the table. Thomas didn't open it. He went to the bedroom, took out Emily's drawing, placed it in a frame, sat on the floor and stayed there. But then, the phone rang. He answered without hope. Thomas? It was Anna. I should hate you, but I can't, because my daughter still asks about you. Even now, he said nothing. His voice wouldn't come. She wants to see you. One last time, but not on a stage, not at a school, somewhere she feels safe. We're at home tomorrow, 1 p.m. But listen, if you mess this up again, I won't. Then come. But no excuses, no promises, just truth. The line went dead. And for the first time in all his public life, Thomas Blackwood trembled before a meeting, because this time, it wasn't the billionaire who'd be judged. It was the man he might have been. Anna's apartment was in a modest neighborhood. Quiet streets, windows with floral curtains, no doorman, no mirrored elevator, no trace of expensive cologne in the hallway. Just the sound of a home still alive, with sorrow, with hope, and with the tick of an old wall clock in the living room. Thomas arrived 5 minutes early. He wore a light shirt, no watch, no visible phone. He knocked with the same hand that once signed million-dollar deals, but now shook like that of a boy asking for forgiveness. Anna opened the door. She's in her room, waiting for you. He stepped inside slowly, taking in everything like someone entering a sacred place. He saw a wall covered with braille drawings, toys neatly scattered, and one photo, the photo. Him and Anna, younger, on a pier, the sun setting behind them. He wore the same expression he had now, not knowing what to do with the love being offered to him. You kept this? I kept everything you tried to forget, Anna answered firmly. But there was something in her eyes. Fatigue. Not physical. The kind that comes from years of talking to someone who isn't there. Emily came out of the room slowly, guiding herself with her hand on the wall. Dad? He dropped to his knees, arms open. She hesitated, then walked to him, touched his face, knew it was really him, and hugged him, slowly, cautiously, like someone unsure if it was safe. But she hugged him. Thank you for coming, she said, softly. I failed you, Emily, and I won't ask you to understand that now. I just want you to know, I wish I had been different. She stepped back a little. Why? A simple question, and devastating. Because I was a coward, afraid to love someone who would depend on me, afraid to fail as a son, as a father, as a man. She didn't reply. She went to her room and returned with something from a box, handed it to him, a small wooden toy horse. It was my first Christmas present. Mom said you sent it. He held it. He recognized it. I did. That year I sent a gift, but couldn't bring myself to write a letter. Anna watched from the doorway. She didn't intervene, didn't soften anything. You understand she'll test you now every day? I do. And that it might take years before she really trusts. I know, and even so, you'll stay. He looked at Emily. I will. And then, Emily took a step back. I love you, Dad. And he broke. He didn't cry. He broke, as if every muscle gave out at once. As if the forgiveness he had chased for so long came too soon, and for that very reason, hurt more deeply. He held his daughter like someone holding a mirror to who they could have been. Anna watched them. Something in her softened. But there was no happy ending yet. Later, just the three of them in the living room, Emily slept in his arms. Anna brought over a blanket, covered them, and looked at Thomas. "Are you leaving tomorrow? Only if you ask me to." She sat at the far end of the couch and finally spoke what she'd been holding for years. "You killed me when you disappeared." But I kept going. For her, not for me, I know, and I still love you. But not for who you are, for who we could have been. I don't deserve that. You're right. But then... She smiled. "But maybe you deserve a chance to change that." And there, with their daughter sleeping between them and night falling softly, Thomas felt, for the first time, what it meant to be whole and broken at the same time. The morning. Sun crept through the curtain slats. Thomas was still on the couch with Emily asleep on his chest, too light a weight for how much it meant. He didn't dare move. Every breath of hers felt like a new rhythm for his life. Anna, from the kitchen, watched in silence. She was making coffee like she always did, but now there was one more person in the room. And that person, as much as he wanted to, still didn't know how to move in this new world. "Morning," she said without turning around. "Morning." She slept like that since she was a baby, on top of me, like the world outside was just too dangerous. Thomas gently stroked his daughter's hair. "Maybe it is, but I want her to know she doesn't have to protect herself alone anymore." Anna placed 2 cups on the table and sat. "You've always been good with words, but now you need to live them." He knew that, and that's what scared him most. Later, Emily woke up, stretched, smiled. A smile that didn't carry yesterday, only now. "I dreamed about a park," she said, still half asleep. "We were running through trees. You were guiding me. And I wasn't afraid." Thomas smiled. "Want to do that today?" She nodded. "But only if Mom comes too." Anna laughed. "Of course, I wouldn't miss this for anything." The 3 of them went. No security, no cameras, no rush. At the park, Thomas lifted Emily onto his shoulders and described the trees, the birdsong, the footsteps of people walking by. She asked non-stop questions. "What does the sky look like right now?" "Blue, with a few clouds, and there's a seagull flying right above us." "How do you know it's a seagull?" "Because it screeches just like the ones at the beach that used to scare me as a kid," he answered, and they both laughed. But there was something Emily didn't know yet. That day, Thomas had something in his pocket he hadn't shown anyone. An envelope. Inside was a letter he'd written in the middle of the night. Honest words, no PR spin, just feeling. He wanted to give it to Emily, but not yet. Not then. When they got home, Anna got an urgent call from the hospital. A pediatric emergency. She had to leave for a few hours. "Can you stay with her?" "Of course." "Really? Really?" Anna looked him in the eyes. That moment carried more weight than entire speeches. "I'll be back by 6." Once she left, Thomas and Emily were alone together for the first time. "Want to draw?" "Only if it's with textures." He sat next to her and they started. He described scenes and she sketched with her hands. A tree, a face, a dog. But then she stopped. "Are you going to disappear again?" He took a deep breath, reached into his pocket for the envelope. "Before I answer that, I want you to hear this." He opened the letter and began to read. "Emily, I don't know how to be a father yet, but I want to learn. With you, I want to listen. I want to make fewer mistakes. I want to watch you grow. Really watch, not just in pictures. I want to love you, not with guilt, but with presence. If one day you forgive me, I promise I will never make you wait again." She listened in silence, then smiled. "Then teach me how to ride a bike tomorrow?" And in that simple request, Thomas understood. Forgiveness doesn't come from speeches. It comes from ordinary days, from showing up. "Tomorrow's ours, Emily." Ours. And that evening, in a modest living room that smelled of fresh coffee, father and daughter began to draw what they never had, but were finally starting to build. The bike was small, blue, with training wheels. Emily touched it like it was some unfamiliar creature. She ran her fingers along the handlebars, felt the brake levers, the shape of the seat. Thomas knelt beside her, explaining everything with a calm he never knew he had. "These are the brakes. You hold on here. I'll be right behind you, holding on. You don't have to be afraid. She nodded. I am afraid, but if you fall with me, then it's okay. He smiled, unable to hide the lump in his throat. They started slow on the park sidewalk. He ran behind her, holding the back of the seat. She laughed, yelling that she was going to fall, but she didn't. And for the first time, since coming back, Thomas felt like maybe, just maybe, he was starting from zero. Not as punishment, but as a miracle. You're doing great. That's only because you're holding on. One day I'll let go, but not today. She smiled. Thanks for staying, Dad. He didn't answer, just kept running behind the bike. But there was something Emily still didn't know. That morning was her birthday, and Thomas had planned something with no luxury, no guests, no expensive gifts, just one gesture. Later, back at home, he asked her to sit on the couch and close her eyes. Do you trust me? I do. He placed headphones over her ears and hit play on a recorder. It was music, a piano piece, light, familiar. This song. That's mine, she said, surprised. It is. I recorded your performance. Then had an orchestra finish. It like a movie soundtrack. Because your story deserves one, she cried. For the first time, from joy. No one's ever done something like this for me. Anna watched from the doorway, silent, moved. And then Thomas did something unexpected. He got down on one knee in front of both of them. I didn't come here just to ask for forgiveness. I came to stay. And this is a contract I signed with myself, every day, with actions, not promises. He handed Anna a folder. Inside, legal documents, a request for official paternity recognition, a petition to add Emily to his civil records, a new will. I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of leaving, and her thinking it was her fault. Anna looked at him like she hadn't in years. You did all this without us asking, because you both deserve it before anyone has to ask. Emily took off the headphones. Does that mean I'm officially your daughter now? On paper and in my heart. She ran into his arms, tightly, like someone who finally believed no one would disappear this time. Days later, they started a new routine. Breakfast together, picking Anna up from the hospital, Braille reading time. And Thomas reading along, learning one letter at a time. Letter A, she said, guiding his fingers. Letter A, he repeated, like he was learning to write his story all over again. At school, Emily started saying with pride, My dad helps me study, and he knows my favorite perfume. The teachers smiled, the classmates listened, and Thomas, for the first time, didn't mind just being someone's dad. In fact, it was all he ever wanted. But something changed in Anna too. One random night, after putting Emily to bed, she called Thomas to the balcony. You know what you're doing, right? I do. You're changing her life, but also your own and mine. He touched her face with respect, with quiet desire. With a love that never really died. Can I stay tonight? You can. What about tomorrow? She smiled. Ask again, the same way. Can I stay every day? She didn't reply with words. She just rested her head against his chest, and in that moment, with no spotlight and no applause, they began again. Fall arrived quietly in the city. Leaves started to gather on sidewalks, painting the streets with shades of rust and gold. For Thomas, it was the perfect season, neither a beginning nor an end, just transition, like him. That morning, Emily woke up coughing. It wasn't bad, but Anna, cautious as always, decided to take her to the hospital. Just a routine checkup, Dad. Want to come with us? Of course. In the car, Emily held a notebook in her lap. She was drawing in texture, like always, but something about her expression was different. Too quiet, fewer questions. Her gaze, lower. You okay, sweetheart? She hesitated. Today, I heard a girl at school say you're only with me because you feel guilty. Thomas felt his heart stop for half a second. And what do you think? I don't know. Sometimes it feels like you're still learning how to love me. He held her. Handcomfortable I am, but that's not a bad thing. Learning is the most honest way to love, because it's a choice, not a reflex. Emily smiled, gently, but there was something Thomas still had to face. At the hospital, while they waited for the test results, which turned out to be nothing serious, a woman sat down next to Anna. She looked at Thomas, then at Emily, and said bluntly, "What a shame, a man with his name, and still so absent in the beginning. You're lucky, little girl, that you didn't grow up like so many others." Anna tried to step in, but Emily answered first. "He was absent, yes, but now he's the first one to wake me up and the last one to say goodnight, and I'd rather have someone who came back for real than someone who never made a mistake but never felt anything." The woman didn't reply. But the message landed. Back in the car, Anna looked at Thomas with a mix of pride and vulnerability. "She's becoming someone who knows how to speak her truth. That's your fault too." "I hope so." But then, the phone rang. It was the company's CFO. "We need you back here. The board wants you in New York. There's an urgent decision about the holding company's future. A fund wants to buy your shares. They're offering more than anyone ever has for a founder." Thomas stayed quiet. "And if I don't go? You lose your seat at the table and likely get labeled as absent for breach of agreement. We're talking billions, Thomas, billions. Thomas, billions." Anna watched his expression change. Emily was drawing in the back seat. He hung up. "What was that?" "An offer. But to accept, I'd have to travel. Now. Maybe for weeks." Anna slowly shook her head. "And are you going?" He looked at his daughter, then at Anna. "No, not now." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure." But there was something Anna needed to say. "I don't want to be the woman who holds you back from your dreams, not again." He stepped closer. "Anna, you two are my dream now. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I'm saying it because, for the first time, I feel like I belong. Somewhere. And it's not in a boardroom." She smiled, but there was pain behind it. "And what if one day I stop loving you? Then I'll still be here, because loving you both isn't about getting love back. It's about giving something real." Emily heard it. And from the back seat she spoke. "Then will you teach me to ride without training wheels tomorrow?" He smiled. "Want to fall together? Let's fall together." That night Thomas lay in the guest room, where he now slept by choice, staring at the ceiling. It was dark, but he wasn't afraid of the dark anymore, because even in the dark, someone was waiting for him to wake. But then something happened. Emily woke up crying, a nightmare. She dreamed that Thomas left again. He ran to her room, held her close, rocked her in his arms. "I'm here, sweetheart, I'm here. Promise?" He didn't answer. He just stayed, sitting on the floor, holding her until the sun came up, because some promises are made by showing up. Rain fell gently that Sunday morning. From the porch, Thomas watched Emily sitting on the living room floor, headphones on, playing notes he now recognized instantly. It was the same melody from her recital, but now every note felt heavier, not from technique, but from memory. He smiled, a tired smile, yes, but full. The kind that comes after a hard road, where every step was carved out of fear, not certainty. Anna came out with 2 mugs of tea. "I didn't know you liked quiet Sundays." "I didn't, but I think that's because I never knew what to do with them." She sat beside him, bare feet touching the cold floor, intimacy without performance, presence without promises. "How do you feel now?" He took a moment to answer. "Like someone who's living a life that didn't start yesterday, but somehow makes up for everything." "I never lived." She didn't respond, just touched his arm gently. "Like someone who knows some answers don't need a follow-up, but there was something Thomas hadn't said yet." "Anna, I thought about proposing to you today." She looked at him, surprised. But I realized I don't need to." "Not yet? Because loving you today, just like this, is already the most complete thing I've ever felt." She took a deep breath. There was no disappointment, just relief. The relief of knowing he wasn't in a rush to fix the past, but ready to build the now. Emily got up and came out to the porch. "Dad, can I show you something?" Of course. She handed him a braille sheet with a handwritten caption by Anna. "List of things my dad has done with me." He ran his fingers over the raised dots, felt each one, each word. Emily began to read aloud. 1. He taught me how to ride a bike. 2. He let me touch his face whenever I missed him. 3. He slept in my room when I was scared. 4. He listened to me without rushing. 5. He made mistakes, bravely. He closed his eyes, swallowed hard. That meant more than any award, headline, or Hall of Fame. Can I do one last thing? With you today, Dad. Anything. She took his hand and led him to the hallway mirror. I want to describe you, how I see you. He knelt beside her. Your face has sadness, but now there's room for hope. Your nose is the same as before. But your chin, it feels stronger, like someone who decided to stay, and your skin smells like home. He didn't say anything. He just cried. The way someone cries when they don't need to hide anymore. Anna watched from afar. She didn't step in because what was happening didn't need fixing. It was real, imperfect, whole. But then, the phone rang. It was the company, the investment. Fund had backed off. His stake was still valuable, but now everything depended on him. A new offer, less urgency, more time to decide. He hung up without answering. Emily asked, "Was it important?" "Yeah, but not something I need to decide today." "Then will you help me write a song?" "Of course." They sat at the piano. He couldn't play, but he hit keys with her, laughed when he messed up, mimicked rhythms, made up lyrics. Anna recorded it quietly on her phone. Not to post, just to remember, to keep. Because those few minutes were everything she'd waited years for. Later, Thomas tucked Emily into bed, sat beside her, picked up a book, and began reading, like he did every night now. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Don't forget who you became here, even if the whole world tries to pull you back." He kissed her forehead. "I have nowhere to go back to. This is where I am. Even if everything goes wrong, especially if everything goes wrong." And she fell asleep. In the living room, Anna was turning off the lights. Thomas walked over, held her hand, and said softly, "We don't need a happy ending. We just need to keep choosing to be here. And will you keep choosing? Every day, even the hard ones." She smiled, and he knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning he'd never had the courage to live, and now finally it was starting. Thanks for staying with us this far. But don't go yet. Another moving story is waiting for you on the next screen. Click, subscribe, and share. I'll see you there.